Hello and welcome everyone, this is Cavalier Storia, and today we'll be continuing on with Call of Duty World at War, and we're playing the Ring of Steel mission. Now I did say how I didn't like the ending of the last mission, but I love the beginning of this mission that it sets up. There's some PPSHs. Now that's our Commissar. Commissars are political officers. And this is kind of a weird quirk with Soviet games. Well, not Soviet games, but games with that star the Red Army. Is that I think they overuse commissars. Like, commissars should be everywhere in the early war, but towards the later war, while they still were there, they took way less of a lead in just, not just in leading the troops, but also in their perceived duties. They tended to be a far more... They spent a lot more time in the rear, kind of just making sure desertion wasn't happening, and contrary to popular belief, they did not shoot people for desertion. They more likely would have just grabbed the guy and returned him to his unit, or returned him to a separate unit. And or just gave them over to a penal battalion. They very rarely actually shot people for desertion. Don't know how I survived that. Okay, let's move up the stairs, clear this. I thought there was a guy there. There's guys here! But, yeah. But for some reason in this game, the Commissars are taking the lead far after than they should be here. Although, based off of what I could tell, the actual Commissar uniform is actually correct. I'm noticing same pants, same hat. So, I do appreciate the detail on it. Got that machine gunner. Take what out? Oh, there's that guy up there. Up, we got tanks rolling in. And with that, we can push in. Let's move in. Oh god. I did not see him until it was too late. And for some reason I'm on the banister. Alright. Let's move up. Now, by this point, the German army was in full Endsieg mode. The Russians are pushing in from the east, the Allies from the west, and they are being pressed on all sides. So they're pushing in the sick, the wounded, the old. Pretty much anyone who can hold a rifle is being pushed up to the front lines in order to fight. Up, and we got this scene. Which, again, I appreciate scenes like that because, I'm gonna be honest, I have very little sympathy towards a lot of these people. Even the myth of the clean Wehrmacht is just that, it's a myth. They were involved with hundreds, if not even thousands, of war crimes. They butchered civilians, they dragged Jews to concentration camps. They murdered Russian civilians and just general civilians of the Soviet Union, including Ukrainians, people in the Baltics. How did I miss that? But doesn't excuse the Russians turning around and doing the exact same thing to them. Actually, I say Russians, Soviets. It was, after all, a union of several nations that made it the Soviet Union. But yeah, that's a common thing we oftentimes forget as we kind of sanitize history into good guys and bad guys. Like, we need to understand that, like, war crimes happen on all sides. Even U.S. forces are guilty of war crimes. The Biscari Massacre is one example of that. And under no circumstance does anything excuse the actions of soldiers who commit war crimes, especially towards civilians. But what I think people need to understand is that many of these people on the Russian side had lost family members. They've lost friends and family. They lost their comrades. They've seen the brutality that the Germans did coming into their nation. So to the vast majority of them, it was because the Germans took up the attitude of this is a war of extermination. And to the Russians, it was a war of survival. So basically, the Russians were fighting for their lives in Stalingrad, in Leningrad, in the defense of Moscow, pretty much everywhere during Barbarossa and the aftermath of that. However, when they got into German territory, they were determined to repay it in blood. Every single person they lost was going to be avenged. They didn't care about rules of war. They didn't care about really anything. They didn't care about soldiers' dignities. They just wanted to kill. They wanted revenge. God, my throat is so dry. But yeah, I kind of just want to point that out. I think it's very important that we kind of remember that war is terrible. It doesn't matter what side it is. And that we shouldn't romanticize it. And that's what I like about this game. It's not afraid of showing you war crimes on both sides. Like, in the beginning of the Russian campaign in the Vendetta, you wake up in a fountain of blood and soldiers, wounded soldiers being massacred. So, like, this game is not picking a favorite between these two, and it shouldn't. Well, it is a bit more favorited towards the Russians, but that's simply because you are playing as them. And I'm gonna be honest, the war crimes committed by the Soviets pale. They are nowhere near. They're not as comparable as some people want to point out. Like, they were not just as evil as the Germans. They were fighting for their lives. That's how they saw it as.
This place reeks of nightmares and madness, but only the insane would stand against us. Keep moving. Keep killing. This way, upstairs.
And that's why I like Reznov as a character, because he kind of embodies that hatred that the Russians had towards the Germans. Can I just compliment the design of this level? You're fighting through an insane asylum. There's a bunch of holes that you can poke through and fire through in order to try to gain good angles on them. and it's close-in fighting. It's kind of confusing, and to be honest, it would be confusing. Like, in close quarters like this. It's a lot of just chucking grenades into the fog, firing bursts of machine guns and submachine guns, and then hoping you didn't die. God. Alright. Yeah, this mission doesn't hold punches. Also, you give me a shotgun in a mission, I immediately love that. Maybe it's because I'm in the position of me as a sniper is being really bad at aiming that I just gravitate towards shotguns. But I love shotguns. I love shotguns in missions. They're just fun. Okay. Oh god. Forgot about those guys. You can pick up a Gewehr 43. Let's go ahead and put a couple of these Germans down on the roofs. Alright. I got one of the Panzer Shreks. There's a second Panzer Shrek. I feel like there has to be someone else.
Good hunting. Let's move.
Alright. We're gonna have to find a replacement for my Mosin soon enough. Also, again, just the brutality of that. Just hitting the enemy in the arm. Or just really anywhere with a shotgun is just brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Meanwhile, I decided to charge that machine gun from the front. You're supposed to flank around. And then there's me, who just like, let's go straight at it. And just shotgun them. Now, shotguns are... I don't think there have been, like, any official shotguns used in World War II, like, by military. Well, there's a few examples, but those would have been rare. But the key part with this is that... I'm gonna grab that Mosin. Is that picking up, like, a double-barreled shotgun off of a... wall and using it, yeah, that's possible. It would not have been like super common, but yeah, it's possible. People would have done that, especially the Germans at this point, because now it's, dear God, the Russians are coming. Grab anything you can to fight them off. Yeah, this is street-to-street fighting. Alright, let's get down, rest a little bit. Also, why is pretty much... I do like how there's always has to be a mark-off in this thing, in these games. And apparently can't aim. Yeah, this game doesn't hold back, and it shouldn't. War's brutal, and we should portray it as being brutal. And I mean, I'm gonna point this out once we get to the end of the street. You are literally encouraged to shoot Germans in the back. Like, the Germans here are fighting a rearguard action, while others are trying to escape and retreat. And you are encouraged to shoot guys in the back. Like, this isn't honorable, it's not glorious. But then again, neither's war. Like, you can just shoot guys in the back here. They will never fire back at you. Yeah. I love that mission because it kind of just shows the attitude that pretty much every single Russian had towards the Germans at this point. And it's only going to get better with Eviction. I'm going to save Eviction until next time because Eviction's great. And I'm going to be honest, from this point on, like every single one of these missions is fantastic in their own right. I think Eviction is like the first one I would consider absolutely great missions. But that's for next time. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. And have a wonderful day.